I hate to say it, guys, but Xbox and Sony has no games. They have no games. And even with the few games that they released, it's barely anything on the PlayStation 5 and Series X. I truly feel like Xbox and Sony has really fallen from grace. And it seems like it just keeps on getting worse and worse. Xbox and PlayStation were the best memories of my life, and it just feels like these companies have really fallen to grace with what they had in the past. Let me start with PlayStation. PlayStation was the biggest company in the world. With the success of the PlayStation 1 and 2. And then when I got a PlayStation 3, that's when I really felt that PlayStation lost its roots. It only played PlayStation 1 games compatibility, and it was basically, I think, a green screen that it had. And the biggest problem I had with the PlayStation 3 was the charging. When it came to charging controllers, it was a freaking nightmare. So not only did it not feel like PlayStation anymore, but it got to a point where even I didn't like PlayStation anymore. I have my reasons why I don't buy PlayStations anymore. Because it doesn't feel like PlayStation ever since the PlayStation 3. Sony's business models are really atrocious. Nowadays, they only focus on live service. And that's pretty much been the downfall of Sony. There was someone else in leadership, but then moved on. And there was this new guy that came into Sony and completely ruined the PlayStation market. They don't focus on single player games anymore. They're solely focused on the cash grab live services. And the worst part about Sony is that they required the company that made Concord, which cost them $400 million. And not to mention, they did a whole bunch of acquisitions that just wasted so much money. And with making their games so high budget that basically they have to fire people and can't make their money back, that is totally unacceptable. And I'm probably only scratching the surface of what Sony has done. I mean, they obviously did the PlayStation 5 Pro, which cost to $700 to $1,000 easily, when you can actually use that money for a new PC. I kid you not. Sony has really fallen from grace ever since the PlayStation 3. And I truly feel like this company doesn't care about gaming anymore. I mean, they rather play it safe. They rather make remakes or remasters. And even with the few games that they had, like Astrobot was phenomenal, there was only a couple games, like a handful of games, like I think somewhere between 10 to 20 PlayStation 5 games. And even that, the generation hasn't been that strong for PlayStation. They don't have very many IPs anymore, and even for the PlayStation 5 IPs that they have, just been dormant all these years. They rather do the cash cow games instead of making games like we want. one thing I've kind of noticed is that these companies just don't make passion games anymore. Like, developers are just so afraid to take any risks that they play it safe in every way. I mean, Sony has really put themselves into a hole. And this is a hole that's hard to get out. Now let's go to Xbox. Xbox has been rough, to say the least. The glory days was the Xbox, and heck, even the Xbox 360. The Xbox One has been the worst scenario for Xbox and was the defeat of Xbox. And that one guy that used to be head of Xbox One has been atrocious when it comes to developing games in general, and has made every gaming industry game fall from grace. Fast forward to now, and we got Phil Spencer that's trying to keep the Xbox afloat, but I feel like with all the stuff that he has done has been totally unacceptable, and we feel like that the Xbox brand is going to die soon. I mean, where do I even begin? The amount of games that Xbox has produced hasn't been that substantial this generation. They bought the Activision. They did an acquisition of Activision acquisition and cost them lots and lots of money. And ever since then, Microsoft has been trying to get their money back in every way. Geez, where do I even begin? The Xbox One was a failure. Xbox Series X has been released. I've been hearing that certain games are running in 30 frames, and certain games not being optimized for Series X. That's been very poor. I mean, the list goes on and on. They had their most successful game called Tango Gameworks, that team that made Hi-Fi Rush, and they completely fired the whole team because of Game Pass. And not to mention, there's the Series S that's making technical problems for these developers. And I'm probably only scratching the surface of Xbox. I mean, Microsoft wants their money back, no matter what the cost. And right now, they're willing to put any game on PlayStation or Nintendo, and now they're just advertising that everything is an Xbox. I kid you not. Xbox is now advertising that pretty much everything is an Xbox. And it makes Microsoft look like a joke. These are really trying times for Xbox and Sony. This is a hole that Xbox and Sony rightfully put themselves into. It feels like they have no idea what kind of identity that they have anymore. The gaming industry is in the hole. And it seems like the only one that's trying to survive is Nintendo. Obviously, Nintendo has its fair share of struggles, but nothing compares to Xbox or Sony. Their leadership, their executives, they don't know what they're doing. They just don't. It kind of just feels like that these guys aren't smart. I don't know, like, it just seems really stupid of how Sony and Xbox has been managed all these years. and has ruined the gaming industry. The Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 does not have the games in the generation. And even for the few games that was capable of the PlayStation 5, most games aren't taking advantage of the PlayStation 5 or Series X. And of course, now PlayStation 5 has the PlayStation 5 Pro, which is a mess of itself, but just these consoles do not have the games that we need. It seems like these games mostly run the same, whether it's on Xbox One, Series X, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 and 5 Pro. Just all these games run the same. And it doesn't seem like there's any benefits of these newer consoles. They are really, really steep hole. Sony and Xbox. I don't know what the future of gaming holds, but this is really bad. I feel like either of these companies could go downhill from here. And that's probably the worst thing in a generation.